What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Rad Stowe back at it again with another video. So in this video I'm going to be relocating the battery on the RSX. So on this car there's not a lot that I want to change or that really needs to be changed, because as is, it's a nice car. Like, everything works, it's cool. The only thing that this is plagued with is a high idle. I think one of my vacuum lines might be broken or leaking or something, which is causing my idles to fluctuate and all that. It's not the idle air control valve, I don't think, and it's not TPS, I don't think. But aside from that, this car, perfect. But in the engine bay, there are a few things that need to be changed So with that being said, this fuse box needs to get relocated because it's going to be in the way. And then from there, this intake is fine where it's at, but it would be better if this wasn't in the way. That way air can go right into the intake, with that being said, you already know what we're going to be doing. Relocating the battery and the fuse box to battery down there, and then hopefully the fuse box should be able to route down here. From DC5 Creation, I have their battery relocation kit. Positive from the battery to the fuse box, the remote terminals, and the grounds, transmission, and the battery. And then in here, from Jack Spanier Racing, I have his battery relocation. So the only reason why I didn't go with DC5 Creations box is because there weren't any in stock, and I'm just trying to do this now. And plus, this was a little bit cheaper. And on top of that, the main thing, Jack Spanier, I see you got a few things that I want for the RSX, so hit your boy up. Let's make something work. I think a majority of Hondas are all going to be the same way, relatively. You need to get to the charge harness, which should be below the intake manifold, I believe on K and B series. I don't know, don't quote me on that. And then to relocate.
Holy jeez. What is that? What the f*** is that? What is that, Private Pie?
The battery, wherever it goes. On the RSX, it goes down here on the passenger side in front of the wheel. On these, you're going to need to notch this all the way straight. Remove these two bolts for the ground, and then put that behind here with the new hardware so it sits flush, and then remove this clip. If I was left-handed, that would have been a lot easier, but that didn't take too much effort to bend this forward. You can cut it if you want. I'd recommend just hitting it forward. That way it all stays together. So I'm gonna remove this clip, take off these two grounds, and then mount up the battery tray. And I forgot to mention, make sure you disconnect your battery before messing with all that stuff. All right, so I got the battery tray installed. I used two of the bigger bolts right here and right here. They come with three, but I couldn't find where the third one goes. And then the three smaller bolts, I put them up here. Disconnecting this crash sensor does help. Taking it off too does kind of help a little bit. So now, next step, I'm gonna go ahead and remove my battery. P.S. don't roast me too hard, all right? My terminals weren't the greatest. So your battery sits right here. And then this is your positive post. That's right there. And then these two bent tabs are going to go to your fuse box, which should be right there. Mine is right here. That's going to replace these two right there. And then this goes down into the charge harness, which goes down there. And then there's two other positive terminals that is going to go from your alternator and to your starter, which is going to be the other two flat pieces. So that is it. This looks a little confusing, but it's not. Battery, fuse box, alternator, starter. Easy. And then you go over here to your negative post, and you can see coming off the battery to the chassis right there, that's the negative. Right here, coming off the battery to the chassis, it's going to be down here, battery to the chassis. And then this one right here, the transmission ground, I believe one is bigger than the other. It is. So this one, the bigger one, you're going to put that on the transmission. And then the smaller one, that one's going to go on the chassis. So you can follow the negative on here. That goes somewhere down there. And boom. Right there. That's where the transmission is grounded at. So everything all in the box looks a little confusing, but it's definitely not. Now what I'm going to do so I can get the charge harness off and rework that is pull off the intake and the intake manifold, and then remove the grounds. So if you want to keep it in the factory location, I believe there's enough slack in here for you to do that, but I just want a somewhat cleaner engine bay, so I'm going to move that down there, move this behind here. You'll see in another video whenever I get to it. And I forgot to mention, you can do the easy way and just connect wires to the positive and negative terminal and then run that to the battery. But in the kit that I got, we're going to be redoing the charge harness so that this is no longer here and that it's only 2 wires coming up to the fuse box. So pretty much from the charge harness, we're going to be stripping it, keeping the starter, this plug, the alternator, and the other plug, and then everything else gets deleted. So we're going to start over here at the battery. Negative post is going to go to anywhere on the chassis. We're going to do it on the crash bar down here. Then you have the positive. That one is going to run all the way behind the crash bar, up and over to the fuse box, wherever you have that. I have mine right there. Factory's right there, but I want to tuck it down there one day. I need a extended harness or a tucked harness. And then the other lead going from the battery, you're going to come down here. It's going to go to one to the alternator right there, and then the other one to the starter, just like that. And then the last thing you have is transmission ground. That can go pretty much anywhere. See a lot of people use that bolt or the stud back there. And then this is going to go again to anywhere on the chassis. I'm going to do the crash bar. That's what a lot of people do. So that is pretty much the kit. I'm going to go ahead and tuck this. I'll show y'all how I have mine. And then we'll move over to those remote battery terminals. So there's going to be a whole bunch of tape, a whole bunch of loom. Just unwrap all that. And this part is right here. And then these, I believe, are all together. Just unwrap it, and then take that away. And then this is all that's left. For me, my swap, I'm not using that. Everything else is being used. So alternator plug, I believe crank sensor plug, and then this goes into the harness. And then you're gonna have those 2 cables in there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I forgot to mention that this is a K24 block, so my harness might be a little different than yours, but for the most part, that's what you're gonna do. And then you can reuse these factory covers. That's what I'm doing. Slip that one over that. Working on that one right there. Now my main man right here. Hoolie with the toolie.
Bang, bang.
Looming up the wire. And then we're about to head out, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up tomorrow. Here I am the next day finishing this up. I forgot to show what the charge harness looks like, but exactly how it was before we taped it. We put some of the loom around there, taped that. I installed that. Make sure you plug in your alternator and your starter and plug that into the harness, and that's it. Reinstall your intake manifold, starting with the inside bolt, top 2, bottom 2, and then the last 2 on the top. To 16 to 20 foot-pounds. I'll run through this again. Those 2 terminals right there, those are going to go to the fuse box. The ground for the transmission, you're going to use that stud back there. Those bolts are going to be 40 foot-pounds. What else? So, and then I used where the battery tray was at, I used that as a ground. You can see, shave that down, put that there, ran this all the way behind the crash bar. You can see that's this right here. I need to tuck that. That comes this way. This lead down here goes to the starter alternator, and the negative terminal, I just grounded that right here underneath the crash bar. And then don't forget to put this arm in there. That's going to use that 10 mil bolt right there. And you're pretty much done with the install. You don't have to use this for the ground. You can tuck it anywhere depending on how clean you want your engine bay to look. If you're going to be mounting your battery behind the bumper or in the trunk under the carpet, you're going to want to get some of these. These are remote battery terminals. So the ending of that video got a little weird only because I was going to include the remote battery terminals in with the battery relocation kit, but I decided to keep that as 2 separate videos. Just make a short video on the remote battery terminals. It's pretty simple. But that's going to do it for this video. I will catch y'all in the next one. Later.